Greetings, vinyl community. As I make this video, it is April 21st, the day after Record Store Day, and I have no Record Store Day releases to show you. I did not wait in line, I just was not up for that. I did go to my local shop after they were already open. The crush was still going on, but all the boxes of Record Store Day releases had been picked clean, and there was nothing that I was remotely interested in left at that point. So I'll still be getting a few things, but I'll just be getting them by other means. Meanwhile, I do have some new records to show, starting with new release of old music from one of my favorite bands of all time, Jethro Tull, and the Chateau d'Hérouville sessions from 1972, when in August, September of that year, Tull took a break from touring for their wildly successful album Thick as a Brick to record a follow-up in the chateau near Paris that turned out to be a really unpleasant environment for the band, and they hated every minute of it from the sounds of things. And the album that was mostly recorded there, that would have been a double LP, was abandoned, and they basically started over again later recording the Passion Play album. But some of the music that was recorded at the Chateau was incorporated into their live set. When they went back on the road in October, I guess, they were doing some of the pieces that they had recorded here that did not make it to vinyl at the time. And they did incorporate some of these songs into a Passion Play and into War Child, the album following that one in 1974. So the recording sessions were not completely fruitless, but they did record an amazing amount of great music that just went onto the shelf and never got finished. A big chunk of it came out in 1988 on the Jethro Tull box set, the 20 Years box set that came out that year, with a little production added, some flute overdubs. There was another chunk that came out later in the 90s on the Nightcap double CD, which had a whole disc devoted to material from these recording sessions, with lots of overdubs, so lots of changes, because the tapes were simply unfinished. This album presents the recordings as they were at the time they were abandoned, so there are no flute overdubs. Steven Wilson has remixed it to sound as close to finished recordings as they can be. The material itself is incredible, just brilliant songs. It does sound a little bare. It sounds a little unfinished. There are parts where you might have a riff going on, say a guitar riff, and you know that it would have that Jethro Tull sound if there were a flute playing in unison with that guitar. You just know that that was intended to be done all along, but it just doesn't exist on the tape. So they had recorded 3 sides of a double LP at the time the whole project was aborted. And this album presents those 3 sides. There's one track that was cut out from the tape reels, so could not be included in its original form because its original form does not exist anymore. That was the story of the hare who lost his spectacles, which of course went on to form an interlude in the middle of the Passion Play album. And it's the same recording, but on the Passion Play album it's heavily overdubbed with various band members contributing bits and an orchestra. There was not a possibility of going back to the original because Ian Anderson had supplied an acoustic guitar part on the original recording that was wiped when the orchestra was added. So it simply doesn't exist anymore. What they've done, or what Steven Wilson has done, not any nebulous they, but Steven Wilson, who did a pretty amazing job on these recordings, was to take the story of the hare who lost his spectacles as it exists and just wipe out all the overdubs. And what's left is Jeffrey Hammond Hammond's narration of the story itself, accompanied almost solely by John Evan on piano, and then switching to organ about halfway through. And there are parts where he's playing both piano and organ. And one very, very brief bit where the full band jumps in for like 2 bars. Otherwise, it's a bare bones version without all the little orchestral flourishes that are so much fun in the version that's on a Passion Play, because it's, it's a children's story. It's done as a children's fairy tale, and it's hilarious. And the orchestral parts that are added are just very colorful and very much in the style of a children's recording. Here is the first inner sleeve, showing tape boxes and sessions and so on. Here is the second inner sleeve with lyrics. So that is the Chateau d'Hérouville sessions. Another album, also recording from the 70s, that's been remixed by Steven Wilson, is The Missing Piece, the 1977 album by Gentle Giant, that was a change of direction for the band. It was a major conscious attempt to be more commercial. Their previous album, Interview, had been basically a concept album about being a rock and roll band on the road and being interviewed, and just the rigmarole that a touring band goes through when they're not really a top flight band success-wise. And so there was a bitterness to it, a feeling of we never quite made it to the top levels of stardom, but we're plugging away, and it's been kind of hard, but it's worth it for the music. Well, this shows them kind of, let's try and make a concession to the audience and see if we can't get just a little bit more stardom. And it didn't really work. But they made an album of 2 halves. Side 1 is the more consciously commercial music, and side 2 is the music that sounds more like the classic Gentle Giant, although there is still a change even on side 2. This album was recorded in the spring of 1977 in Holland, I think, and it followed a tour. I saw the band on the tour. I saw them in March, where they were playing all the songs that appear on side 2 of this album that had not been released yet and had not even been recorded yet, but they were trying out all the side 2 songs, all the more classic Gentle Giant songs, in their live set. So when they went into the studio, they came up with the more popular songs. They've opened with a song called 2 Weeks in Spain, which is just a very cheerful, rocking song. I'm Turning Around is a big ballad with lots of keyboards. Bet You Thought We Couldn't Do It. That's the big song that's a bone of contention among Gentle Giant fans, because it's Gentle Giant's sort of backhanded salute to punk music. And the Gentle Giant fans don't like hearing Gentle Giant do a sort of imitation of punk, but that's what you get. And then the side ends with a couple of kind of funky numbers, Who Do You Think You Are and Mountain Time. Side 2 consists of As Old As You're Young, which is the closest thing, I think, to the classic Gentle Giant sound, and yet it has a kind of commercial poppy tinge to it. It sounds to me like it could have been a single. In fact, I'm Turning Around was the single from this album. I think 2 Weeks in Spain was issued as a single in some territories. That's followed by Memories of Old Days, which was notable in the live performance that I saw. For all of the Gentle Giant members for that song played one type or other of guitar. So you had electric guitar, you had 12-string guitar, you had 6-string acoustic guitar, you had Derek Shulman playing the bass guitar. They were all playing guitars, and that's just kind of typical of Gentle Giant's instrument switching on stage, where there would be little interludes where everybody is playing the same thing, like the famous drum bash where everybody's playing percussion, or the little recorder interlude that they did in The Advent of Panurge, where everybody except John Weathers would be playing recorders, and John Weathers would be playing a little medieval drum to goose them along. Last two songs are Winning and For Nobody, which are more dense and rocking songs, more complex. This is Steven Wilson's remix of the album, which was, in its original mix, really deficient in bass. So the biggest difference you'll notice is that there's more of a bass presence on this. The album in its original form was rather short, so they've got space on this lovely green vinyl edition to include a bonus track, which is an instrumental outtake of Winning based on Drum Machine. There's heavy clattering percussion on the finished recording. It sounds like, and apparently it largely is, pots and pans being used for the percussion. It's interesting that the inner sleeve includes the lyrics, which were not on the original release. The original release just had a plain green sleeve with this missing puzzle piece on one side. So if it doesn't get me a copyright strike, I will include a needle drop of the original mix and contrast it with the new mix, so you can, I don't know whether my camera is going to pick up the difference in sound, but we'll see if that works. So a few days before Record Store Day, I stopped by that same local record shop and found a David Bowie record you don't see very often. David Bowie in Bertolt Brecht's Ball. This was a television, well, it's the music for a television production of Bertolt Brecht's play Ball. Bertolt Brecht himself wrote music for the songs in the play, and in I don't think David Bowie was responsible for it. I think it was just a matter of the television production. They don't use the original tunes. They use rewritten versions of the songs with music by Dominic Muldowney. They've got Bertolt Brecht himself on the back. And the music is not rock. It's Bowie accompanied by orchestra mostly. So it's sort of an odd little side road in the Bowie catalog. This is apparently the last thing he did for RCA before moving on to EMI. And it is a 5-song EP. It's not an album. And at the time it was out, I remember seeing usually a 7-inch version of this, an import single of the EP on 7-inch. But this is an American edition. It's got a little cutout notch there. And finally, a couple of cool krautrock acquisitions. This is an album that I saw a month ago, and I was interested in it, but the price on it was more than I normally like to pay for a record. It wasn't, out of reason, but a little out of my comfort zone. So the next time I went back to that store, it was still there. I was kind of surprised it hadn't sold, so yeah, people aren't going to buy it at this price. So I went back once again, and this time I brought some records in for trade, thinking, I'll bring enough good stuff that it'll take the sting out of it. And that was a very good idea. That worked out well because the store owner offered me $5 more than it would have cost me to buy the record itself. So what I got was the Faust Tapes by Faust. This is the original pressing on Virgin with no song titles of any sort. So what this is basically a collage of studio bits and pieces. Little songs, little ditties, snippets, jams, short jams, bits of echoing effects and musique concrète, bits of spoken word, different languages going on. So it's as I say, a collage. It's just a sampler. And this was an album that you used to see around a lot because they offered it at the time for, I think it was 49 pence. It was marketed as if it were a single, but it's actually quite a lengthy album. And pricing it that low meant they sold a zillion copies and got it on the charts until somebody cried foul and said that they were cheating, and got it back off the charts. So Faust successfully acquired basically for free with a bunch of albums that were from my to be sold or to be given away box. And finally, I had an extra $5 in store credit, so I had to buy something, and I certainly wanted this. Well, it cost more than $5, but that's okay. Claus Schulz Live, double LP from, released in 1980. The recordings, I think the recordings are from the late 70s, from some different shows. This is on the Brain label, the orange Brain label. Each side is a full-side composition. Bellistique on side 1, Sense, which is 31 minutes on side 2, Heart, which is also over half an hour on side 3, and Die Magic, which is, again, 31 minutes, 45 seconds. So you've got a very long album. Die Magic is also notable for featuring contributions vocally by Arthur Brown, who had recently collaborated with Claus Schulz on a couple of projects, including Claus Schulz's Dune album. And we have a lot of little photos of life on the road with Claus Schulz, I suppose. And a poster, of all things. By 1980, how many albums were still coming with posters? That was a big thing in the 60s. And just images of Claus. Used to get albums with a poster included, and it'd be a sticker, includes full color poster. This has it printed right on the cover. Inkla poster. So that's my finds for this week. Thanks very much for watching. Be well. Talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.